The entrepreneurial spirit is resilient, and U.S. Bank is here to make sure that no matter what unknown pops up, business owners know that we have their back. Because problem solvers are the ones that keep us all moving forward by finding ways to close gaps, even when distances are being kept everywhere. So whatever you need to adapt and evolve your business, U.S. Bank is here to support you. U.S. Bank. We'll get there together. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Discount Tire has just made tire shopping easier. Their touchless experience allows you to buy tires and book your appointment online. Then when you drive in, you can stay safely inside your car as the tires are installed. Discount Tire. Let's get you taken care of.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Good morning, Hoop Ballers, and welcome to another edition of Hoop Balls DFS Today. This is your Saturday, April 24th edition. I am your host, Santino Cacone, and I'll be running this one solo for you guys. We have a nice 2 slates on our hand here, and we have a 2-game early slate. Starts at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we have the late slate that starts at the normal 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 2 games in the first one, 6 games in the second. And there's a lot of fun to go around. A whopper of an injury report right now. We don't have a ton of people ruled out as of yet. I'm recording this one early in the morning. But we do have a ton of people questionable, which goes without saying. If you are playing, you got to keep up on that news. If you can't keep up on the news, or pay attention if what at all, or whatever the case is, then just play a little bit smaller. Don't shell out your dollars because a lot of big names on there that might play, might not play. Couple back-to-backs that we have to talk about, and I'll repeat those throughout the podcast. But there's 5 teams on one end of a back-to-back today. We have the Heat, Rockets, Nuggets all on the back end, and the Bucks and Pacers on the front end. And before we get into it, I do want to shout out our guys over at MyBookie, simply the best sports book out there. If you're not betting with them yet, you should get familiar with them. They have a ton of fun contests. And for all you UFC fans out there, we have a big fight tonight, so better late than never to get in. And if you want to join, you get I'm sorry. Lost my thought process for a second, but join now and get your deposit matched halfway up to $1,000 if you enter the promo code HoopBall upon signing. That's HOOPBALL. And I also want to shout out our guys over at Manscaped, the number 1 men's below the waist grooming in the world. And if you want to, and they have some great products there. I loved the Perfect Package 3.0. I rave about it. Last night I actually wore the shirt and the boxers that come with it. And out of everything, I love those materials. Those are my favorite things. But the Lawnmower 3.0 is awesome in its own right. It's crop preserver, crop reviver, all that stuff. You get a nice bag that comes with it, a carrying bag. Very, very, very good quality of stuff there. And if you want to join, get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code HoopBall20. But let's get on to this slate because it is kind of a long one. The first game of the day is part of that early 2-game slater. It is the Raptors at the Knicks. We have a spread of the Knicks are 2-point home favorites, and the game total is 217.5 as of now. On the injury report for the Knicks, we have Alec Burks, Mitchell Robinson, both out. In the Raptors, we have Chris Boucher. I love doing that. Jalen Harris, Paul Watson all out, and Rodney Hood as questionable. So for this one, I like a couple guys. We'll start with the Raptors since they are the away team. I'm looking at Fred VanVleet. This is a tough matchup going against the Knicks. It always is. They're slow, and they're one of the best defenses in the league. But Fred VanVleet has had success against the Knicks this year. In the one game he played, he took 19 shots and had 47 fantasy points. DraftKings points. And I do want to have some exposure to this Raptors backcourt. We'll see if anybody misses as the tip-off time inches closer. But we don't know who's going to be there for Philly if Embiid plays, and that might make me not really want Giannis if there's no Embiid, and vice versa. But I think we can pay up for one of these guards, whether it's Lowry, Van Vliet. I just feel a lot more comfortable with Van Vliet, only $400 extra. And then, obviously, if they both miss, Malachi Flynn at 5,600. We know what he can do when he's getting 30-plus minutes as the primary guard on this team. But outside of them, I'm looking straight at the center position. We know Chris Boucher, even though Nick Nurse did not like him as much and was unwilling to play him at center because they think he's more of a power forward, he was still getting some minutes. But without him there, Kem Birch, 4,200, becomes a lock and load for me. And Freddie Gillespie, he's been playing pretty well. He's getting minutes in the rotation the last couple of weeks. And the last couple of games, he's creeping. The last 4 games, we'll say 19, 22, 19, and 24 minutes. And at 3,400, you can play him too. Expect a couple more minutes without Boucher. Maybe they split time, him and Birch, and you get that $800 discount. But I'm just going to go with Birch more if I have the $800, just because we know it's a lot safer there. But those are the 3 guys I like on this team. As for the Knicks, I think the Knicks are solid on the value as well. I think we could play Julius Randle, 9,600. He's probably the most, as of doing this podcast, he's probably the safest superstar to pay for because we don't know if Embiid is playing or not. And if Embiid doesn't play, you have to think that the Bucks might rest someone too, or they run away with that game. Either or, and they'll probably try and get some Giannis rest in there if they can, some holiday rest, because they are playing on the front end of a back-to-back. But I'll get to that game in a moment. Randall, very good matchup against the Raptors. You can score on their front court, whether whoever's playing. And Randall's been playing very well right now for the scorching Knicks. So I like going there at 9,600. Outside of him, Derrick Rose. As long as Alec Burks is out, it opens up some minutes in the backcourt for some guys. Derrick Rose has been playing well lately. You can score on the Raptors. 5,100 is a solid price tag. Same goes for Reggie Bullock, 4,600. More minutes available for him without Burks. They kind of cancel each other out when they're both playing. But when one's not playing, Burks has been seeing a ton of minutes lately. Bullock has been seeing a ton of minutes lately. 40, 38, 37, 41, 35 in the last couple. So you can go right back to there at a fair price. And Nerlens Noel at 4,400. He's been starting to get more of the lion's share of the minutes at the center position. And no Mitch Robb. You can expect that to continue. When Mitch Robb first went out the second time, Taj Gibson was getting more minutes too, and they were kind of splitting it, but Nerlens Noel has taken the reins here, and at 4,400, we know he doesn't score, but that's a very solid price tag. The second game I kind of touched up on a little bit, but it's the Sixers at the Bucks. This one starts at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. We have a spread of the Bucks being 7.5-point home favorites, and the total is 230. On the injury report, we have Joel Embiid, Furkan Korkmaz as questionable, Ben Simmons as out, and the Bucks have yet to submit their injury report, even though I'm recording this one in the morning. So we'll see exactly what they pop up with. But again, the Bucks are on the front end of a back-to-back, so we can see them sitting some people, especially if there's no Embiid, going against the Sixers with no Embiid possibly and no Simmons. I'll start with the Sixers since they are on the away side. The people that I like on this side are all fairly cheap. Depending on what happens with Embiid, I think if he's out, you can look at Tobias Harris, though I would probably stay with Van Vliet. But Tobias Harris becomes the clear-cut number one guy, and at 7,200, that's a fair price. If Embiid plays, I don't want to touch him, but if he doesn't, he comes into my player pool. I don't know how much exposure I'll have to him, but he'll be there. And I do like him a little bit more, obviously. Outside of that, Danny Green at 4,800, Shake Milton at 45, who I prefer of the two, and Dwight Howard at 3,800 are 3 other guys that I'd be looking at on the Sixers side of the ball here. Dwight Howard, whether Embiid plays or doesn't play, at 3,800, he's a solid value here on a short slate, especially if you're trying to get in as many big name players as possible. We know he can rebound. Even if he's playing minutes in the teens, he's probably going to get 6+ rebounds. Then that'll bring back value. And if Dwight or Joel Embiid doesn't play, he's going to be the chalkiest guy on the slate at 3,800. So you can definitely go there. Shake Milton with no Ben Simmons, possibly no Korkmaz, possibly no Embiid. He's going to have a ton of usage. He had a very good game against this team the other night. He took 14 shots, dropped 20 points, 4,500, fair price tag. And Danny Green, if Embiid and Korkmaz miss, more minutes, more shots, and he can score from the 3-point line. It's what you can do against the Bucks. On the Bucks side, depending on Embiid, I'll like him a little more or a little less, but Giannis, he's the highest guy on the slate. I think we have enough value that we can get him, and we can get possibly get him and Randall. So without crushing your lineup, but Giannis just crushed this team last game. If Embiid doesn't play, he probably won't play 30 minutes, but he could still put up near 50 points in 28 minutes against this team again, especially without Embiid there. I just like him. He got to the line a ton, 10-2. I mean, you can't hate Giannis. Outside of him, Bobby Portis is a guy I'd look at, especially if possibly Giannis sits. But 5,300, he also did really well against this front court, the backup front court. You might see extra minutes in a blowout scenario as well. So 5,300 is not a bad price tag for him. And Pat Connaughton, he's the only guy I can trust right now, depending on how the game news shakes out, of the reserves that I know gets a good amount of minutes. And in a blowout scenario, you can expect some solid return there, and he's only 3,600. All right, let's go to the second half of this slate, the big slate, the main slate. That's 6 games. We have the first game starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is the Detroit Pistons at the Indiana Pacers. For the spread, we have the Pacers as 5.5-point home favorites and a 222 game total. On the injury report, we have Jeremy Grant, Corey Joseph as probable, Rodney McGruder, Dennis Smith Jr. as out for the Pistons. On the Pacers side, we have Miles Turner, TJ Warren, Sabonis all out, McDermott, Lamb, and Goga as questionable. So pretty big injury report for the Pacers there, and not the Pistons, shockingly enough. But the Pacers, as mentioned earlier, are on the front end of a back-to-back, so they may play cautiously with a lot of these guys on the questionable tag, and I will get to them after the Pistons, who are the away team. But like a lot, I'm going to name a lot of names because depending on the news, a lot of them are in play. But we'll start with the Pistons. And Grant at 6,700. You're not going to have that. There's no Miles Turner, no Sabonis, possibly no Goga, no interior presence. So Grant should be good in this one. I know he hasn't been playing the greatest lately, but under 7K, he's actually in the lineup. Hopefully we see 30 minutes, and that's a solid price tag to go to. Outside of him, I'm looking at I don't want to, but Corey Joseph, 5,100. It seems as though whenever he's actually in the lineup and not resting, the guy is getting 30 minutes. Dwayne Casey said specifically that he wants to get his younger guys a lot of minutes. Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey, and Saban Lee. He mentioned those 4 specifically by name. But Corey Joseph, when he's in the lineup, he's getting a lot of minutes. So a 5,100 in this matchup, don't hate it. And Mason Plumlee, his minutes have dwindled down a lot lately, but in that last one, he played 32. And if he's going to play 25 to 30 minutes, and even more possibly, at a $4,900 price tag, that's a really good price tag. Not the safest of options because we don't know if he's going to just see 16 again, but very good price tag. And I'll take some chances in GPPs in the hopes that he plays 30 minutes or so again. And that's pretty much it for this team. While I see most of them, most of everybody not on the injury report and not missing this game. Dwayne Casey isn't the most reliable person to trust with minutes, so I don't want to fully go in there without some assurance that some of these guys are going to play more minutes. I mentioned the guys that I'll take shots on because they can bring back solid value there at their price tags, but the young guys that we've been going to a lot lately, I can't go to them currently with everybody else, all the vets playing. On the Pistons side of the ball, I mean, you're missing your two starting guys in the front court. Lamb, McDermott might not play. Goga might not play, but there's a lot to unpack with this team. I'll start off by saying I like both of the guards, Brogdon and LeVert. I'm going to lean towards LeVert for $200 less and at shooting guard. But I don't hate going to Brogdon either. But again, I'll lean to LeVert for $200 less. He just has that game where he will take shots when his three-point shot is falling, and he's seeing a lot of the minutes. Just looks pretty solid, so I'll go there. But again, I think Brogdon is also in play. Outside of them, I'm going straight to the front court and playing whoever has a pulse here. If Goga plays, he's my favorite of the front court options at 4,100. He should start at center, knowing that there's no Sabonis, no Turner. He doesn't usually play with, if Sabonis is playing, they don't really fit well. He fits a little bit better with Turner, but with none of them, he should see a lot of minutes if he's available to go, and he would be my preferred option and one of my favorite plays of the night if he can go. If he can't go, then it's just a jumble. Brissett, we saw him play a ton of minutes last game, and he probably will play a lot of minutes again. But there's also McDermott, and if he plays at 3,800, he should start at power forward, probably. So I like him there. And Jakar Samson was suspended in that last one also. So we didn't have Brissett got all those minutes because there was no Goga, there was no Samson. McDermott wasn't there either. And then you had no Sabonis as well, no Turner. There was no one in the front court. So if we have Goga, McDermott, Samson all back, they're all going to see some minutes, and Brissett will not play 42 minutes again. But he did play well, so he's going to earn himself a solid role at power forward and center spot, and maybe some small. He's not a big guy. He's not a true center, actually. But I don't mind going to all four of them. Again, I would put it in. Goga would be my number one option out of them. Jakar Samson is just a punt play purely at 3K, and he might get some minutes. If Goga doesn't play, he's gonna. I would assume he starts. But I like Brissett as well, and McDermott, and then Samson as my fourth. I just think there's a lot of value. 4-2, 4-1, 3-8, 3. A lot of value in that front court that we can look to. People are going to probably look at Aaron Holiday and Edmund Sumner too. I'm just going to leave them alone and stick to the front court and the starters in the back court. All right, on the second game, we have a tip-off time at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we have that early Detroit Pacer game at 7, and then the next one doesn't start till 8. This is the Chicago Bulls at the Miami Heat. The Heat are 7-point home favorites, and the spread is the lowest of the night, or the total is the lowest of the night at 210. The only game that doesn't, or there's 3 games under 220, but this is easily the lowest one by 6.5 points. On the injury report, we don't have anybody for the Heat because, ding, 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 they are on the back end of a back-to-back. So I'll have to keep an eye out on them as the day rolls along. But we have Troy Brown Jr. and Zach LaVine as out and Patrick Williams as probable for the Bulls. I'll start off on the Bulls because they are the away team, and I don't really love this matchup for them. The Heat are a very good defensive team. The Bulls are not the greatest of teams without Zach LaVine. So I'm just going to stick with 2 guys, one that is decent, one that purely a punt play option that I don't love, but he is an option. And the first one that is a solid option is Kobe White. Again, at 5,900, he's starting. He is the best scorer in the backcourt. I keep saying that because he is. I know he's not taking a ton of shots lately, 10-10, 14-10 the last 4 games. And he's still putting up solid value with that. Eventually, he's going to take some more shots because that's most of his games. So we'll see what happens here. But I don't mind him at 5,900. I think he's solid. And as a pure punt play, Garrett Temple at 3,800 because he continues to start. Continues to see a solid role. Minutes in the mid to high 20s. And you can't always get that under 4K. Don't love him, but he will be an option if I fall there and say, I'm stuck on a position and I have to go there. On the Heat side, it's watch the injury report. We know Oladipo is not going to be playing on this one, but on the back end of a back-to-back against the Bulls, they might rest Butler. They might rest Bam. They might rest Dragic, Iggy, a lot of these guys, and then that's when we'll pounce. But as of now, I don't know who's in, who's out, so I'm just going to assume everybody is in, and say I like Kendrick Nunn at 5,300. This is a matchup also, even if these guys are in, to where they don't have to get overextended most likely, and they can get some in-game rest for Butler and Adebayo and stuff. But Nunn, he's been playing. He's been playing minutes, even though there's Dragic and everybody's healthy. He's still playing minutes in the 30s, mid to high 30s, and he's still taking a bunch of shots and he's still scoring points. As long as he's in the rotation, playing a bunch of minutes, we can look at him. So in this particular matchup against the Bulls, who can't guard in the backcourt, I like it. And then Trevor Ariza at 4,900. The guy continues to start at power forward, continues to log over 30 minutes a game, and he continues to bring back decent value every few games. He goes on a couple game spurt where he's solid, and then he goes on a couple game spurt where he's scoring in single digits. Last night he had a double-double. I think that, not that the double-double continues, but the hot streak, the solid streak continues for another game or two, and then I'll go off of him. And at 4,900, I can go to him in this game type. He's a lot quicker than Daniel Tice and should have a solid, decent advantage there, assuming Tice gets the start again. But I'm not really gravitating towards Bam or Butler. If I had to pick one, it would be Butler. I don't love the $9,500 price tag, but going back to Chicago, I do love that narrative. But I'm not sure if he plays, and if he does, how much, or if they just want to take it easy with him on the back end of a back-to-back, because it is also the Bulls. All right, the third game of the night is the San Antonio Spurs at the New Orleans Pelicans. This one also starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the spread on this one, the Pelicans are actually 1.5 point home favorites, and the total is 231.5. On the injury report, we have Steven Adams as probable, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Josh Hart as out, and James Johnson as questionable for the Pelicans. On the Spurs side, we have DeMar DeRozan, Rudy Gay, both questionable, and Trey Lyles as out. We also, they're letting us know that Derrick White is available and playing in this one. Right on the Spurs side of the ball, they are the away team. Obviously, the news of DeMar DeRozan is big. Rudy Gay, okay, to a lesser extent. We'll see some front court minutes go around there. But DeMar DeRozan's news and availability is big. If he misses the game, I really like DeJounte Murray, and Derrick White gets better as well. But Murray is the guy that I like the most on this team. I'm hoping DeMar DeRozan does not play, but we'll see. If he does play, I still think that's a solid price tag in this matchup, in a fast-paced matchup, and the backcourts usually do well against the Pelicans. I probably won't go to DeRozan at 8.5 because I don't know if I want to spend that much money there for him in particular. But Murray is the play that I like the most on this team, and I'm hoping that DeRozan sits this one out. Just makes it even better. Outside of that, Drew Eubanks at 3,800. Decent spot. Another option, not a guy that I'm in love with, but an option that we can go under 4K. He's playing minutes in the teens, but he's been a permanent guy and bringing back value even at this minutes in the teens there. So don't think the upside is great, but if you fall under 4K and you don't want to go boom or bust and you just want a solid guy to bring back some value, I think Drew Eubanks is it. More on the boom or bust side, Patty Mills is a guy I'm looking at as well in this environment. If DeRozan sits, helps him out even more. But this is a game that he can score and get his shot off and score a lot of points on. I like attacking the Pelicans when I can, and in the backcourt especially, and Patty Mills fits that description at only a $3,500 price tag. So again, I think he has that boom or bust potential, but he's a guy that I'll take some shots on in GPPs. On the Pelicans side, the price tags to me are just not for everybody, but Zion over 10K now. Interestingly, the 2 games that Zion played against the Spurs, he's averaging over 47 fantasy points, so he's getting close to value there. But he's only shooting 40% from the field, 15 of 37 overall, and that's a testament to Jakob Poeltl's awesome rim protection. One of the best defensive centers in the league in terms of defensive rating, and that's a testament to because Zion is shooting incredibly from the field this year. But I want to go to Zion sometimes, but I probably won't be doing it. I don't hate it, but I really just don't want to pay over 10K for him right now. Ingram, don't hate it also, but he's nearly 9K, and the upside there is kind of limited. So I don't want to go there too. I love Lonzo. In this particular matchup, I don't know if I want to pay for him there yet. I know he said his minutes limit was up, but he still hasn't gotten over 30 minutes yet. He only played 25 against Orlando. Granted, it was a massive blowout. I still put up 30 points, and even though he shot like poo, he would be the one guy that I would look at out of the big 3 because the price tag is a lot fairer than I want to pay for Ingram or Zion. But I still don't. I still have some hesitancy, but I'm not going to say that I wouldn't play him. And if I do go somewhere because the matchup is solid as well, that's where I'll go. Is that with that $7,100 price tag? Outside of that, though, I'm just going to leave the rest alone. Again, I think like Najee Marshall 56, it's pretty high. Steven Adams in this matchup at 53. Bledsoe. I just don't love all the matchups, and if everybody's going to play, I'll leave it alone for the most part. Jackson Hayes, since he does play power forward, slightly intriguing if James Johnson misses again, but not enough for me to want to go there. So for the most part, I'm leaving the Pelicans alone, but I will have a little Lonzo exposure. The next game starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is a rematch of the Lakers and the Mavs. We have a 216.5 game total, and the Mavs are 2-point home favorites. On the injury report for the Mavs, we have a big one in Kristaps is questionable. We have Cleba questionable as well, and Tyrell Terry as out. For the Lakers, we have a laundry list that includes LeBron, Jared Dudley as out, Dennis Schroeder, Markieff Morris, Andre Drummond, Anthony Davis, all probable, and Marc Gasol as questionable. We'll start with the Lakers. They are the away team. And the guy that I like the most on this team is Andre Drummond at his price tag. He finally had that game. He looked pretty good. I know he's still dealing with the toe issue, but he looked pretty good. He's looked good in 2 of the last 3 games. And he's playing nearly 30 minutes in those 3 games, so I feel comfortable with him. And we saw that Andre Drummond is actually good when he plays with good people. Who would have thought that? Everybody forgot that he hasn't played. He's played with one All-Star in his entire career, and that was a watered-down Blake Griffin. Anthony Davis, even though it was only 17 minutes, he looks good again with some of those with those guys, and I would see that continuing as AD gets ramped up and as LeBron gets incorporated. They're going to want the big man to do his job, and it takes off a lot of pressure from Drummond and down low, and when you're going to have to put a lot of defensive attention on two super duper stars. Yes, I said super duper stars. And it frees things up for Drummond. So I like Drummond at 6'5", and Schroeder. The matchup for point guards against the Mavs isn't bad, and Schroeder's been having a good couple games there. We already know AD is not going to be playing a ton of minutes here. He's going to have a slow ramp up. So we can look at Drummond and Schroeder at 7'5" and 6'9" respectively. And outside of that, unless KCP misses or some of these other guys miss, because KCP is questionable, I'm not going to have any exposure. If he does miss, then I'm interested to see who draws the start. It's probably going to be Wes Matthews, and no one's excited about that. At 3K, though, if there's 30 minutes opening up, I don't mind him, but I would probably rather take a shot at Horton Tucker or just leave it alone. And that's mostly what I'm going to do is leave it alone. We have on the Dallas side, Luka is the highest priced guy on the slate, and for good reason, because he's Luka. And I do like that. I will go there, even though the Lakers are still one of the best defenses in the league. Now, they're a top 4 defense, regardless if Anthony Davis is in there or out there, or LeBron is in or out, or both. They are a top 4 defense in the league, statistically. But Luka is Luka, and he is of the high-priced guys, like the super-duper high-priced guys. And I don't know why super-duper's in my head right now, but of everybody over 9K right now, I feel the most comfortable with him, even in this matchup. Everybody else has something that could be going against them, or not, but we know his floor is safe. There's going to be some good value here tonight. And it's Luka. And then outside of him, I'm going to take a peek and see what happens in the front court. We have Porzingis and Cleba, both questionable. Porzingis played in the other night, got hurt, hurt his ankle. It was the second half of the back-to-back, and then he got hurt. Go figure. But I don't know if he plays in this one. And if he doesn't, I'm looking right at Willie Cauley-Stein if him and Cleba both miss. If Cleba plays and Porzingis doesn't, don't mind Cleba either at 3,700. But I'm looking straight at you, Willie Cauley-Stein. He got a ton of run in the last game, 31 minutes, and we know that Carlisle kind of mixes and matches who he's going with in that front court when people are missing. But he is the best per minute guy of him and Powell. If you want to throw Boban in there, then yes, Boban's the best of a per minute guy of him, of all 4 of them. But Cauley-Stein, we know, gets more minutes than Boban, so I'm going to go Cauley-Stein. And then if Cleba plays, don't mind him. But it all is dependent on Cleba and Porzingis' status, and mainly Porzingis' status. If Porzingis does play and Cleba does play, or just Porzingis plays, then I'm looking just at Luka. The next game, this one starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Utah Jazz. This has the highest total of the night at 235, and the Jazz are 13.5-point home favorites. And yes, these last 2 games both feature spreads, the highest spreads of the night at 13.5. But on the injury report for the Wolves, we have Malik Beasley as out, Jalen Noel as doubtful. And on the Jazz, we have Mitchell as out and Azubuike as out. We'll start with the Wolves because they are the away team. But I don't love this matchup for these guys. Don't hate Towns, but I'm just not going to go there. I can't trust that this game stays close, and I'm not going to pay 10-5 for 25 minutes of Towns when I could just pay $500 extra and get a safe floor of Luka. Ant Edwards, not that I hate 7-3 or that I hate him in this matchup, because we do know that he's pretty much blowout proof. He's going to be the one starter to guarantee that's definitely going to be getting minutes even in a blowout. But this is a tough matchup for him, and I don't want to pay 7-3 when we have other options on this slate. But I do like some D'Angelo Russell at 6-4. I think it's still, now that his minutes are starting to continue to ramp up, maybe he doesn't get 30 because it's a big blowout, but if he gets 28 or so, he can bring back value at 6-4. It's just a very good price tag to where even if they get blown out, I think value can be returned here. And the one game that he did play against the Jazz earlier in the season, he dropped 25 actual points and 6 assists. So I took 21 shots. Maybe he doesn't take that 21 shots, but I can see him bringing back value even at lower minutes in what looks to be a likely blowout. Outside of him, I'm looking at Naz Reid. I know he had a big game last game. People are going to look at him, but if you think it's a blowout or you think he gets minutes next to Towns like he did not too long ago, that's pretty intriguing to me. And this guy is a per-minute guy. He's very good when he's playing to rack up fantasy points. And if you think it's a blowout or you think he can get 25 minutes, I think it's a good matchup for him. And he's another guy just like Towns who can stretch Rudy Gobert away from the basket, cause him a little bit of trouble. And I think he plays a solid role here tonight. I just think it's a blowout, and he's going to get minutes in a blowout. So that's also a good thing there. On the Jazz side, I can't really trust anybody. Even without Mitchell, they should beat him bad. So I'm looking right at just Mike Conley at 7K. The Wolves aren't the greatest of defense in the league, and their backcourt is especially the weakest point of them. And Mike Conley has really stepped up with no Mitchell. A lot of these guys have stepped up with no Mitchell, but I think he is the safest for me at 7K, knowing that he's really not much more expensive than Clarkson or Ingles. Only 5 and 400, and 1,100 more than Bogdan or Bojan. My bad, got the brothers mixed up there. So it's not a big price jump and a leap to go to Mike Conley, and that's why I like him. I prefer him over the other guys. Don't hate the other guys if you wanted to get a couple guys in your lineup, but I don't know that that wouldn't be something that I would do, knowing that it's a massive spread. You have one of the best teams in the league going against one of the worst teams in the league, and they're also home. And that segues us into the next game, where we have another very good team playing one of the worst teams in the league, and they're at home. And that is the Houston Rockets at the Denver Nuggets. This has a 225 game total, and the Nuggets are 13.5 point home favorites. Both of these teams are on the back ends of back-to-back. So we only have 3 teams on the 16-team slate, day I should say, because it's 2 slates, that are on the back ends of back-to-backs, and 2 of them are in the final game of the night that tips off at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So definitely be on your toes if you have some exposure to this game. But we'll start with the Rockets, since they are on the away side of the ball. John Wall has already been ruled out. They said he will play Friday, sit Saturday. Can rule him out. Kevin Porter Jr. out. Eric Gordon, Sterling Brown, out. Dante Exum, out. David Nwaba, out. DJ Augustine didn't play last game. Avery Bradley, or hasn't played in a few games, I should say. Avery Bradley got sick pre-game last night. Didn't play. He might not play. I don't know who's going to be available. Oh, Christian Wood. Forgot to even mention Christian Wood. He said himself he doesn't think he's going to play tonight. He had a little bit of an injury, ankle injury against the Clippers on Friday, and he doesn't think he's playing tonight. So who's actually left for the Rockets? And not only are they bad when they are at full strength, but I really don't want much exposure to this entire game, because this just might turn out. Why would the Nuggets run Jokic out there for 30-plus minutes when he doesn't even need to play and they'll beat them. But we'll get to them in a minute. On the Rockets side, man, they just don't have any bodies, really. Kelly Olynyk is a play by default. No Christian Wood. I don't want to spend 67 for him, but he'll be in my player pool if I have to by default. No Wood, no Wall, no a lot of people. Daniel House just came back. They might need it. He played 21 minutes. I don't know if he'll play again on a back-to-back. Maybe they just have him active just so they have enough bodies, but I can't feel comfortable with him. Armani Brooks is the most comfortable guy that I feel on this team. I mean, like I said, no Wall, no Porter, no backcourt. 3,800, he's going to start and play a ton of minutes, whatever the score is. So I'm going to go there. I think by default, he's a very good value play. Maybe we get Avery Bradley back and he takes some minutes, and wouldn't hate going there either by default at 3,400. But I'd prefer Brooks. And Kenyon Martin Jr., again, by default, 3,600. Going to have to see minutes, right? It's going to be a blowout. There's just no bodies on this team right now. We'll see if some people unexpectedly, like DJ Augustine, come back. Like I mentioned, Avery Bradley, maybe those guys come back. But if they don't, there's no bodies here. So if you want your value in a likely blowout, playing against likely backups, the Rockets are your team. And I wouldn't go with anybody, maybe except Olynyk, over 4K here. And Olynyk, I'm just very sus about that price tag. But if you feel comfortable about it by default, I'm going to keep saying by default, then he might be your guy. But DJ Wilson is another guy that I'm looking at. Again, there's just no bodies on this team. Likely blowout. This guy should play minutes, and he's a pretty good player when he gets a ton of minutes. And he's a pure desperation punt play, but somebody's got to play on this team. And that's where we are with the Rockets right now, like we were earlier in the season. And then we got the Denver Nuggets on the other side of the ball. And, man, we saw Will Barton leave the game last night, did not return. And then P.J. Dozier started in his place in the second half. And P.J. Dozier is the lone guy on this team that I'm going to play. 4,100, very good price tag, likely blowout. He'll play in a likely blowout, I would assume. So can go there. But everybody else, Jokic, Porter, Gordon, Campazza, even Austin Rivers, I just can't fully trust any of these guys to play 30 or so minutes. They could probably bring back value against a Rockets team in 25, but can't go there. I can't pay 10-9 for Jokic, knowing that Luka's only $100 more and should have 10 more minutes, likely. Yeah, it's just tough. This is a very good matchup, obviously, for the Nuggets, but at home against whatever the Rockets are trotting out, they might be up 30 at the end of the first quarter. So I just can't go there except for Dozier, because I assume Barton's not going to be playing in this one. He might draw the start again, and he'll probably play he should play a good amount of minutes even in a blowout scenario. So that's the only guy that I'm going to go on this team, unfortunately. And that's it for the slate. I know everybody likes the tiers, so I'll throw down some tiers really quick here. On the expensive side, kind of probably hinted to it, but anybody over 9K, 8K or so, I'm just going to go Luka. I think he's the safest of the higher priced guys. I mentioned Towns, likely blowout. Jokic, likely blowout. Vooch, tough matchup. Zion, I'd rather just pay 900 and be much safer. Butler, I mean, might not play a ton on a back-to-back against the Bulls. It's Luka by default, and I like paying up there. In the mid-tier play, I think we got some solid guys in the mid-tier here. I'll skip. No, I was going to skip the mid-tier and go straight to value and throw out a couple value plays, but In the mid-tier, I guess I can say one high from the early slate and one from the late slate. Early slate will go Derrick Rose. And early slate expensive tier, I like Julius Randle. Because, again, he's the safest of the guys to get a ton of minutes. Embiid might not play, so that means Giannis could possibly sit or just have in-game sit like he was doing a lot last year and the year before. So I like Randle, very good matchup, and he's the safest guy of the priced-up guys. In the early game for the mid-tier value, Derrick Rose, 5-1. Very good match. There's only 2 games to choose from, and one game has an awesome matchup. The other game has possibly a tight, defensive-oriented matchup there. So I'm going to lean towards the fun game where we can get a lot of our exposure too. On the in the mid-tier for the late game, Andre Drummond, we just saw him demolish this front court a game ago. And it still might be a very good matchup with Cleba and then Porzingis, both questionable. Even if Porzingis plays, it's still it's even good matchup. But might have some Willie Cauley-Stein, some Dwight Powell, a lot of attention to AD, even though he's probably going to be limited to around 20. And Drummond can go do his thing again at 60 or 7,500. And he looked pretty healthy, so that's a good thing for him. In the value tier, I feel like this is getting abused here. Or actually, no, I went 2 Knicks, but I'm staying in that same matchup and going Kem Burke in the early slate at 4,200. We know Boucher's gone. He should see at least half of the game, and I would expect the lion's share about 30 minutes or so. $4,200. This guy is pretty good when he's playing, and this is a decent matchup for him. So I'm going to go there. Don't mind Shake Milton. I think without Ben Simmons, it's a good matchup for him. And Dwight Howard, if Embiid doesn't play, is the chalk value of that early slate. But as of now, I think Birch would be mine because we still don't know on Embiid's status. And in the late slate, I think we have some solid value here too. There are quite a few guys that we can look at, but I'm going to stick with in that Laker-Dallas game and go with Willie Cauley-Stein at only 3,100. 2 guys ahead of him are questionable, and if they're both out, he's going to get very good run at 3,100. If they're both in, or you don't want to wait that long because it is 8:30, it's an hour and a half after the first game, then the value is straight in that first game. And whoever is starting in the front court for the Pacers, I preferably want it to be Goga and him being healthy enough to play because he would be my favorite play at 4,100 to attack, even more so than Willie Cauley-Stein. But he's questionable, so we don't know if he's going to play. And if he doesn't play, that means the 3 top center options on the Pacers are gone, so it would also depend on is Doug McDermott healthy enough to play. But Brissett at 4,200 had a very good game in the last one. I would go to him second, McDermott third, Samson fourth. But we're really hoping that Goga does play because he will be in a very good spot there. And that's it for the tiers, guys. Thank you, as always, for listening. If you want to give me a follow, my Twitter account is at Santino Cacone. If you want to follow all of our Hoopball accounts, just type in Hoopball in that search bar and go to your favorite team, your favorite type of podcast. We have a lot of stuff going on there. And also, we are looking for new people or new hires, both on the season-long side, the podcasting and all that stuff, and the DFS side. So if you think you have what it takes or you play a lot, you want to see what everything's about on either side, give myself a DM, give Dan a message, give Mike a message, and we'll get back to you and tell you about the openings that we have in all forms of our site. But thank you guys again, as always, for listening, and we will catch you again tomorrow. And as my buddy Will always says, Peace.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.